let's talk about the company Patagonia and the drag performer Pattie Gonia. So for anyone who is not caught up, Pattie Gonia, the drag queen, has been performing under that name for years now. She's gone on a national tour. She does a lot of hiking and drag out in the woods and, broadcasting that on Instagram. I actually saw her show when she came to Burlington, Vermont. A drag king friend of mine actually got to perform in that. She is a climate activist. She's a drag performer. She does things like her merch, the shirts that are sold as merch at her shows are reclaimed fabrics, stuff that was like excess or like in some very minor way defective that was going to be thrown out. It's all reclaimed fabric. So she does try and put her money where her mouth is when it comes to climate activism, which is a huge part of what it is that she does. So Patagonia, the company, is suing her for trademark infringement. Now, technically, they're suing her for $1, and they seem to realize that it's a bad look for them, a very large and very profitable company, to be suing a much smaller, independent, self-sustaining activist and performance artist. They are officially suing her for only $1, and they claim it's like we've been trying to work with her for a very long time to come to some kind of arrangement or agreement, but we couldn't come to one, so now we're taking this step because we have to protect our trademark. So I got a couple things to go over. Number one, trademark law. I think some of this has actually gotten relaxed in recent decades, but traditionally, if a company is aware of a potential trademark violation, it actually is a massive problem for them to not address it legally in some manner, because there is a thing where if you don't defend your trademark, you risk losing it, because the determination by the trademark office becomes you are not actively using this trademark, because if you cared, you'd be fighting these potential infringements, and you're not. We're going to just let it lapse and or revoke it. That is actually part of the reason why there's the infamous thing where Disney sued a daycare over a mural with Mickey Mouse on it. While, one could have their debates over the manner in which Disney handled that, there is an argument to be made. I'm not saying I agree with it, but there is an argument to be made that Disney kind of had no choice once they realized that that existed, because if it became known that they were aware of infringing things and not doing anything about it, it puts their actual trademark at risk. Now, as I said, I think the strictness of that has been relaxed a little bit in the last few decades, but Patagonia is still saying, like, we need to protect our trademark. So there is a whole thing that I could do about debating whether or not any of Patagonia's merch, because it does seem to be the merch that they're zeroing in on, because her name, Pattie Gonia, is not the exact same. And while if you say it quickly, it sounds the same, that's really defensible as parody or satire or something of that nature. And honestly, so is most of her merch. Where the issue, because remember, under First Amendment, parody, satire, these are protected. You can't sue somebody for copyright or trademark infringement over parody. But there can be an issue where even if it's a parody product, it isn't distinguished enough. The metric that is generally used, and it's a wonky metric, but it's what gets used, is that if a reasonable person might be confused and think that Pattie Gonia actually had been sanctioned or partnered with Patagonia, then there's a risk of it being trademark infringement. Now, some people have gone through like her merch with a fine-tooth comb and like singled in on, say, like there's this sticker that she has where it says Pattie Gonia, but the font is very similar to Patagonia's, and it kind of has a background that, has some rainbows and stuff integrated in it, but the silhouette of the background is very similar to Patagonia's trademarked logo. So from a copyright trademark perspective, there is a case to be made in favor of the company Patagonia. I don't care, though, and here is why. Trademark law, in theory, protects any corporation of any size. Whether it's a small, single person owned LLC or a massive billion-dollar corporation. In theory, trademark law protects them all equally. In practice, trademark law protects the wealthy and those with the money to swing the legal system like it's a frickin' baseball bat. That is the reality, and that is what Patagonia, the company, is doing. So personally, I don't care if what Pattie Gonia is doing actually could be said to constitute trademark infringement, because as far as I'm concerned, the trademark law as we have it is completely screwed. And people will get hung up on but this is the law. Yes, but the law is wrong and inequitable in this case. To give you an idea of how massively weighed in favor of larger corporations trademark law is, trademark is something that isn't owned by a person. Copyright can be owned by a person, but trademarks belong to corporations. So I know because I looked into potentially trademarking Council of Geeks. Now, everything I do under Council of Geeks still falls under copyright. That's automatic and defensible. But I just looked into, as a query, what would it take for me to trademark it? Because I can't just submit that to the trademark office. A corporation cannot be represented by a non-barred individual. Corporations must be represented by barred attorneys and law firms. So while you are allowed to defend yourself as a person in court, you cannot represent your corporation yourself. So before even getting into the costs and fees of what it costs to get something trademarked, I would have had to have gotten a law firm on retainer. And the law firm that I talked to had a $5,000 retainer, meaning before I could even consider filing for a trademark, I would have to pay them $5,000 just to have people who would do that filing for me. And shock of shocks, small LLCs, small companies, most of them don't have just $5,000 laying around. And even if they do, that's just to get the trademark. That says nothing about what it costs you to actually go to court and defend the damn thing. This is what I mean when I say that trademark law as it exists benefits only the wealthy, only massive corporations. And also, while we're on it in general, I try not to swear in the live stream, but to hell with it. Fuck Patagonia, the corporation. They have gone so far out of their way to try and paint themselves as one of the good ones in terms of corporations. There was this whole thing where the owner in his will didn't leave it to his family and left it to a nonprofit to help the environment, which was bullshit. Technically, it is what happened, but that nonprofit was newly formed. If he had actually cared about helping an environmental cause, what would have been a far better use of the money would have been to have left it in the hands of an existing and already operating nonprofit for the sake of the environment. The reason that it was set up specifically for this is the same reason that every billionaire sets up a trust, a charity, a nonprofit, etc. It's for tax evasion purposes. If the only goal was to help the environment, a better use of the money would have been to give it to somebody else. But they kept it in-house, formed this nonprofit so that it could benefit their goddamn taxes. There are none of these, or almost none of these corporations, despite how much they spend to make it look like and make us think that they're the good ones. They're not. This includes companies that I even like. I love Ben & Jerry's. They are not nearly as altruistic, as charity-minded, or as environmentally cautious as they paint themselves as. I am aware of that fact, and it ticks me off that they bank and cash in goodwill on the basis of something they are not actually. And it ticks me off for Patagonia for the exact same reason. Patagonia, the company, not the drag queen. So regardless of what the legal specifics are and whether or not any judge or whatever actually finds to be the case for the trademark, I'm on Pattie Gonia's side because fuck these corporations and fuck trademark law as it currently exists. Now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lipfula, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Claire Wright, Dave Hall, Snark Shark, Oliver B, Mystic Shadow, Daphne Matthews, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Becky Sparks, Twilord, Kay Johnston, Tracy Scrabbit, Pau Barabajoggle, Magdalena, Sir Didymus is my favorite, and a couple of additional names I'll have to dub in because I forgot to add them. And here I am with those dubbed names. Thank you to the Demon Bunny, Vin Jost, and Sarvis. I'm a little bit distracted, you might have noticed. Everyone's reintegrated. Don't worry about Navarro. He got rehoused. He's completely happy where he is. But this is the mischief now. And it's a lot.